It's what they call FaceTime. Is it there?
I have FaceTime on my new one.
Oh, you got an iPad? Or
No,
iPhone?
I got this latest, whatever it's called. But this can be for Skype too, right?
Yeah, I've got a Skype app on this for those that don't have iPads.
I don't have Skype yet, but I'm thinking of doing it.
You can get an app for the iPhones or the iPads or.
Well, I was thinking, in some ways it's intrusive because then I have to get dressed and put a good background music. They laughed. They said, "No, you don't need to do it. It can be that." Anyway, that's my joke.
I know
That's
exactly what you mean.
When you get to be our whatever age parameters, it's sort of like, oh, I don't want to get
I put my email down there for you.
Beautiful.
And I got yours anyway. I think I sent you something by email.
I think so.
So you can't imagine how much this has delighted me. Because I have no association in
No, and
Nevada.
neither does Shilavati and Denise, and I want to get all. We're talking about getting everybody together.
And, well, that's one of the other projects I'm working on. With
they both have beautiful places in the country we can go to, and
we had to do little workshops or retreats.
Well, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, retreats would be really nice.
Well, it's probably going to happen.
And I'm close to Reno. I'm right off at, I can get over on 80 or 50.
Go to Pyramid Lake?
Oh, yes. Matter of fact, devotees can. I have a lot of.
That's in my new book, Pyramid Lake.
Petita Pavan loved it out there. He even had many hours he spent talking to the chief out there. But,
the Washoe?
No, the Paiute.
Paiute.
Washoe also are there, and so are the Shoshone.
I know. I used to go to gatherings there in the Truckee Mountains up there.
Did you ever hear about Wabushka? Or no, what was his name? He was the one that started the ghost dance. He's buried out in Wellington.
Crazy Horse.
No. It was started with Wawanka.
I help somebody get ready for a ghost dance vision. Okay. We'll talk about that. And speaking of that, this is called Navajo wisdom. Navajo are called Dine, which means people.
Right.
About 1966 or so, a NASA team doing work for the Apollo moon mission took the astronauts near Tuba City, where the terrain of the Navajo reservation looks very much like the lunar surface. Along with all the trucks and large vehicles, there were two large figures dressed in full lunar spacesuits. Nearby, a Navajo sheep herder and his sons were watching the strange creatures walk about. The two Navajo people were noticed and approached by the NASA personnel. Since the men did not know English, his son asked for him what the strange creatures were, and the NASA people told them that they were just men and they were getting ready to go to the moon. The Navajo men became very excited and asked if he could send a message to the moon with the astronauts. So as you know, in World War II, the Navajo were the
wind talkers. Yeah, they called them the wind talkers, right? Yeah, I saw that documentary.
The NASA personnel thought it was a great idea, so they rustled up a tape recorder. After the man gave him this message, they asked his son to translate. His son would not. Later, they tried a few more people on the reservation to translate, and every person they asked would chuckle and then refuse to translate.
Wow.
Finally, with cash in hand, NASA found an Uncle Tom to translate the message. The message read, "Watch out for these guys, they'll take your land too."
Love it. That is so precious. So were you going to give me that one or not?
I'd be glad
to. Okay, I'll pass it on to a friend of mine in Reno. Yeah. That's all right.
Yeah, because then somebody else can get it. And
that's
just a little bit of something for everybody.
Yes,
There's
definitely.
5 sections.
Wow.
Empathy, doodling, musing, travels, and India.
wonderful.
And there's even a silly poem called The Islands of Death.
Did you ever get into limericks?
We did. At a birthday party, the theme was to make limericks about the birthday boy.
Oh, how
And there
sweet.
is a certain form.
Yes, there
Yeah,
is.
so I did.
My dad used to sing limericks to us when we were a kid, when we'd go for rides in the car, and that's how he entertained us while he was driving. Because there were 3 of us, and we were all a year and a half apart.
Okay.
And it went, the one I remember, well, there's a couple that I remember, and it went, it was midnight on the ocean, not a streetcar was in sight. I dropped into the drugstore to get myself a light. That man behind the counter was a woman, old and gray, who used to peddle shoestrings on the road to Mandalay. And then the chorus was, which all of us kids would sing with him, is, oh, ain't we crazy, ain't we crazy, this is the way to spend our life away. And the one I think Dad might have made up was, because I've run across versions of that one.
Some people sing it at campfires.
Yeah.
And some of the kids.
Yeah. And another one I remember Dad singing, and we always thought he made this one up, was, never knew who my father was, but I always had a hunch that he was my mother's husband and the craziest of the bunch. My dad was a very funny fellow.
That's nice.
Yeah. And he got to hear Krishna. He got to hear about Krishna before he died. Matter, I often thought that Dad was in a gasoline explosion after I'd been chanting 16 rounds for several months, maybe 2 or 3. And we're living with my mom and dad in Sacramento. And Dad had put some old gasoline in the bathtub to try to dissolve some of the kids' plastic toys that were keeping it from draining, because he tried everything to get that drain to open up. And he told all of us not to go down there. And he had the window wide open. And he had unplugged everything before he even took the gasoline in there. And it was old. It had been sitting around on the front porch, and he kept me to use it for the lawnmower, but never got around to it. You know, gas gets stale, right? Well, Dad figured, you know, after an hour or 2 that it was okay for him to go in and try to flush it down. You know, turn the hot water on. And he got, because he wanted to take his bath, and he went in there and he closed the door. And I was in the living room with the kids. And within minutes, and it used to take a while for that water to get hot because the hot water heater was on the other side of the house. And it was about that time, about, 2 or 3 minutes after he closed the door, that I heard the explosion. And I went running down the hall, and my first impulse was to open that door. And I couldn't. Wouldn't open. But I saw where the sparks had come up underneath the door and gotten on the carpet. And I stomped out the fire. I ran out the door, grabbed the fire hose, and then, hosed. I actually put the fire out with a hose, garden hose. And then the fire truck pulled up just as I had done that. And I ran around in front and I said, just go get my dad out. And they went to open the door and opened right up. I figure it must have been the force of the fire and everything in there that was keeping the door closed. But it was a blessing. It was Krishna's arrangement, because if I'd opened it, then it would have come into the house. Keeping the door closed until the fire was out kept it from spreading. And,
Do you have to feed a meter or anything?
Huh?
Do you have to feed a meter?
Oh, have I been here more than an hour?
Let's walk just to make sure.
It's across the street. And we paid them, so we're all
I
done.
know, but I just...
Anyway, I'm going to turn the